Hi, welcome back to the Progressive West. This is Solomon, and I just want to jump on here and talk about why I'm supporting Marianne Williamson for the presidency this time around. First, let me just say that I think that a lot of leftists, people on the left, have already written her off. I think most of people that pay attention to politics have already written her off. They act as though the future is already determined and the DNC has already rigged it, which is accurate, except for we don't know the future. And people are just kind of saying she's not going to be president. Well, how do you know? I think it's really early in the primary process, and I think that we are in a unique time in American history. I think the old status quo needs to be challenged. I think she's the voice to do it. And I also think that precedent does not necessarily predict the future. So it's true that an incumbent Democrat has never lost to a primary challenger. But these are not ordinary times. We just came out of a pandemic. Joe Biden is our oldest president. He's an unpopular president. People can see that he's struggling with his mental faculties. And he's also not bringing the vision that we need to deal with the fascists, the right wing, the Trumps of the world, and the DeSantises of the world, who are increasingly more in line with the most fringe elements of the right wing that are trying to attack gay and trans people from every corner. Legislatively, they're attacking free speech. And so we've left old politics behind in the United States. This is the era post-Trump. And so anything's possible. They said Trump was not going to win. He did. They said Hillary Clinton was a shoo-in. She was not. They said Bernie Sanders couldn't win. He didn't, but he got very close. So I'm also going to just go over some of the policies that she supports because I think it's important. And this is very much in stark contrast to Joe Biden, who basically hasn't been doing anything. He hasn't been offering anything in terms of his campaign. He just announced he was going to run, and he's just letting the DNC do all the work for him. Just let him. He just thinks that he's a shoo-in and that he's just going to win. He's not even trying to put out any kind of policies or any kind of making. He's not making the case for himself because he just thinks he's entitled to it, which is just entirely smug and disgusting. And the majority of Americans don't want to see him run for office again. And so, let's look at her website. Now, let's be very clear. I'm an animal rights activist, and I support abolishing animal agriculture altogether. I think it should be illegal to farm animals, and in most circumstances, almost all. I think it's not practically possible to completely wipe out animal agriculture, but I do think that should be the goal. I think we should have, plant-based food for everybody that needs it. And I think animals aren't food. So I think it should be illegal to farm animals and to kill them for their flesh and to exploit them. And one of the first issues on her page is animal protection. I've never seen this before. Maybe Cory Booker or somebody else. Like, Cory Booker's the only, vegan member of Congress. One of them. There might be a handful or a couple. But even Bernie Sanders talked about factory farming and breaking up big ag, but he didn't have this on his page. So this is a place where Marianne's going above and beyond Bernie Sanders. She has adopted the Bernie Sanders message wholeheartedly. She struggled a little bit last election cycle to kind of comprehend the importance of going for Medicare for all, full stop, single payer, universal health care. But she has, definitely turned around on that issue and is 100% on board with it now. But so animal protection. My commitment to advocating for animal welfare is a long-standing and deeply held personal conviction. I wonder if she eats meat. She might not. I don't know. She does. It would be cool if she didn't. But as president, I will lead on animal welfare by appointing strong leaders at the agriculture and interior departments and all other agencies with exposure to animal welfare issues. I'll support bills that help animals and veto measures that hurt them. Veto measures that hurt animals. In other words, She's not going to kowtow to all these huge mega corporations, these agricultural businesses that want to just kill animals for their flesh and just to make a profit. Because every single time we pass a bill that continues to have subsidies for animal agriculture, that's exactly what's happening. We're selling away life. And this is a beautiful thing about Marianne. She's advocating for a politics of love. And that's what veganism is to me. I think we need to get better at advocating with compassion, advocating for love, because of how we feel towards animals, knowing that we're sharing this planet with them, and that they have moral consideration, and that they have moral worth, and that they deserve to be treated correctly. She understands this. She's not going the entire full abolish animal agriculture, but can you really expect that of a president to come out and say that? I understand that would be politically hard to do, but this is good. This is really good. Okay, so I have long believed in the power of the human-animal bond and the hard-wired connection we have with wild and domesticated animals. Animals enrich our lives and are the antidote to loneliness and sadness. They can comfort young and old alike and make us more human and humane. The real use of the word humane. Humane slaughter is an oxymoron. More than 2/3 of American households have pets, and hundreds of millions of us enjoy visiting national parks and other protected areas to see birds and mammals. Yet there are still too many examples where human-animal bond is broken and people treat animals cruelly. I am deeply concerned, this is bolded, I'm deeply concerned about the consequences of factory farming on the health of humans, animals, the atmosphere, and our land and water. I want to end the 60-year experiment with factory farming and transition to a more humane and sustainable form of agriculture, which is already at work in so many parts of the nation. She doesn't say it explicitly, but moving us away from animal agriculture, moving us towards plant-based foods. I will call out other forms of cruelty and exploitation wherever I see them. That includes puppy mills, animal fighting, horse sorting and slaughter, trophy hunting, the use of wild animals in circuses, illegal wildlife trafficking and poaching, and other forms of exploitation. Individual and institutional acts of cruelty are damaging not only to the animal, but also to the human soul. I am devoted to making these and other important animal welfare issues part of my agenda as president. This includes weighing in on animal welfare policy issues being considered in Congress and at the executive agency level. Who is saying this? Who is saying this? Who has ever run on this? In the history of our country, this has never happened. She is the candidate for animals. If you are an animal rights activist, if that's your number one issue, she is the candidate. Specifics. Let's see. I will continue supporting California's Proposition 2 and Prop 12 measures which restrict the extreme confinement of farm animals. The latter measure also forbids the sale in California of eggs, pork, and veal that come from farms that subject the animals to extreme confinement. This one woman could do more for the animal rights movement than we've been able to accomplish in 50 years of advocacy. If we just get her into the White House. I will strongly oppose any effort to subvert animal state welfare and food safety laws through freestanding legislation. I support federal policies to ban battery cages, gestation crates, veal crates, so that we have policies that are humane and that provide certainty to farmers. Dozens of major retailers from Walmart to Kroger's to McDonald's have made pledges on these issues. The U.S. government must catch up to the food retail sector on animal welfare and provide pathways for farmers to invest in more humane and extensive production systems. We should be abolishing it, but we gotta transition. But this is really, really good. This is the best I've ever seen from a presidential candidate. I support efforts to phase out the use of non-therapeutic antibiotics in animal agriculture and switch to a science-based approach. This is a threat to the health of animals and to ourselves as people. Medical professionals such as expert epidemiologists believe that the overuse of antibiotics is rendering ineffectual whole classes of life-saving antibiotics for humans. She understands these problems. We feed almost all of the antibiotics used in the United States go straight to factory farmed animals. and it's killing us. It's creating superbugs. I support efforts to promote more nutritious meals, including those that favor more produce than meat. In our schools, prisons, military, and other institutional settings influenced by U.S. food and agriculture policy. A higher proportion of these foods on the menu in the diet will promote healthier lifestyles and healthier planet. So she's talked about this extensively, like having moving to cure the causes of disease. So, there's a cookbook, How Not to Die, How Not to Diet, how to, plant-based meals, whole foods, plant-based diet helps you live longer, helps you feel healthier. And a lot of our chronic illnesses, obesity and heart disease and all sorts of things, are caused by our food policies, our big sugar, our big meat, big dairy, that for decades and decades have made it so that they're the just default. And people are waking up in all sorts of different areas of our society. People are waking up to the fact that, hey, why the hell is it that we're programmed to eat milk in every fucking meal, in every fucking bowl of cereal, in every morning? Every time you wake up in the morning, you have some milk and you crack an egg on to the fucking skillet and you put some flesh of a pig on there as well. Now it's changing. Eliminating animal cruelty. I will continue to support the Preventing Animal Cruelty and Torture Act because it's paramount that the United States adopts an anti-cruelty statute and makes animal abuse a felony. I've also been a steadfast opponent of dogfighting and cockfighting and support efforts to expand federal law against it. I suppose the application of our federal laws against dogfighting and cockfighting to every part of the nation. I support the application of our federal laws across. Yeah, okay. I will urge Congress to pass the Pet and Women's Safety Act, which will allow pets to be protected across state lines when restraining orders are issued in domestic violence and stalking cases. In 2018, this 2018 law also allocates funding so that domestic violence shelters can accommodate pets. Wow, she's really thinking ahead on this. It just keeps going on and on. Okay, let's see. I will vigorously enforce the Dog and Cat Meat Trade Prohibition Act. I will continue to urge Congress and our country to set an example for nations by eliminating the domestic slaughter, trade, and import of dogs and cats for human consumption. We should do that for all animals. All animals. But this is great. I will vigorously... the vast majority of Americans are opposed to horse slaughter. That's true. So she'll do stuff on that. I will urge Congress to pass the Prevent All Sorting Tactics Act to outlaw the inhumane technique of injuring the feet of horses that cause them to exaggerate their gait at horse shows. I will vigorously enforce the Horse Racing Integrity and Safety Act, which bans race day doping for horse racing and establishes uniform national standards for horse racing overseen by U.S. Anti-Doping Agency. Wow. Each year, these animals are forced to go through painful experiments in the U.S. Okay. We got to go back up here. Millions of animals are forced to go through painful experiments in the U.S. These animals are infected with diseases, sickened with toxic chemicals, live in the worst conditions, and are often killed when the experiments end. I will strongly oppose testing on live animals such as rabbits, guinea pigs, rats, and mice. These tests are not only cruel and unethical, but they are unnecessary and unhelpful. There are alternatives to animal testing in the cosmetics industry. I support similar transitions for testing in the chemical, pesticide, and pharmaceutical industries. This is incredible. Imagine the United States leading the charge on animal rights, leading the charge on animal welfare, banning these kind of testing, vivisection on animals. This is amazing. Preserving wildlife. And it keeps going. I could read this for hours. Okay, no, it doesn't keep going for hours, but okay. Check it out. Okay, so healthcare. She's fully adopted, like I said, healthcare, a Medicare for All plan. So you can read about that. So, but you know what Medicare for All is. We all voted for Bernie, hopefully. And then reparations. What other candidate is talking about reparations? She understands that our country is deeply broken on a spiritual level. So I haven't really been looking at the camera, but look, our people have not dealt with the pain of our black population, of the native population, and we need reparations. So, specifics. According to my plan, reparations for slavery will be paid in the amount of a minimum of $1 trillion, which we could easily afford. We just cut it out of the military budget. These payments will be made over a period of 20 years to a reparations council made up of black leaders from across the spectrum of American academic, cultural, and political leaders. The council will include 30 to 50 members, all descendants of enslaved people, and all who have some scholarly, cultural, or political connection to the issue of reparations. This council, not the American government, would determine how the money is to be distributed. The stipulation on the part of the American government is the following: that the money be applied for purposes of economic and educational renewal. That's exactly what we need. Okay, indigenous rights, Native American justice. This is incredible, guys. I've looked at this one. Look at this little land rights. Recognizing the principles in the United States Declaration of Rights of Indigenous People, tribal consent to be prerequisite before granting permits for construction projects on tribal treaty lands, waterways, and usual and accustomed areas. Reversing any efforts or actions by U.S. government which reduced tribal lands or resource rights. Now, what does that mean? This would be the first president to reverse the long-standing policy of taking land from natives. You've seen the maps that started out like, okay, natives people were living all across America. This was their entire territory. Okay, and then it started shrinking. They started moving back, and then they get these tiny little pieces of land granted to them and then taken away. Let's reverse some of that. Let's give some of this land back to the people that were here first. Returning dominant control of the Black Hills of South Dakota to the Sioux, Dakota Nation. The Black Hills, considered sacred to those nations, were promised by treaty in 1868 and should be returned as promised. You know what that means? She's going to give Mount Rushmore back. She's going to give Mount Rushmore back to people, to the Sioux. Oh man, is the media going to have a shitstorm when the Sioux blow up George Washington's face? Wouldn't that be fucking hilarious? You should vote for it just for that. Just for that reason. That the Sioux are going to fucking blow up Mount Rushmore. That'll be hilarious. Okay. Improvement of native land. Protection of sacred sites. Improvement of native lands justice systems, which due mainly to chronic underfunding, make it difficult to enforce prosecution of non-natives accused of serious crimes. Support the rights of tribes to regulate and manage their own environment. Right? Sovereignty. Mandating that all property tax revenues from tribal reservation lands shall be shared with the tribes. Isn't that progress? Because not only did we steal all their land and genocide their people, but then we said you have to pay federal taxes. And also, your guys are a separate nation, so you actually don't get to benefit from any of the taxes that we're going to tax you on. I don't know the entire tax code of all the reservations, but that's kind of what it seems like. Yeah, they should benefit from that. Ensure full funding for the Indian Health Service and the establishment of at least one IHS clinic in each state, dependent on geographic area. Increasing and expanding community health centers and behavioral and mental health services to Native youth within tribal communities and school systems. Isn't that incredible? Because, like, what if we had Medicare for all, right? And then just, like, we can't leave out the reservations. They deserve Medicare for all as well, and they would benefit as well from just, if most Native people don't live on reservations. So, yeah, they would benefit from this in both areas, right? Like, so you can get healthcare on the reservation or off. And violence, there's a lot here. Fully fund the Violence Against Women Act, and ensure its reauthorization in 2027 when it is set to expire. Can you imagine setting an expiration date on a little piece of legislation like that? Um, VAWA helps with the issues related to Savannah's Act and reflect the disturbing levels of unaddressed abuse and sex trafficking across all genders of indigenous people in some Native American communities. Yeah. She would. Okay, we need a woman in the White House, first of all. We need this woman in the White House. And that's because there was never been one. Because she understands women's issues, sex trafficking, sexual abuse in all sorts of areas of life. Imagine how policy would change in the military for so many servicewomen if Marianne Williamson was in the White House. Okay, so I could go on. She has policies for days. She has policies for days and days and days and days. Let's see: crime prevention and criminal justice, education, food safety, labor, LGBTQ rights, mass incarceration, pandemic. Oh, pandemic. Just a lot. Poverty. It's shocking that in the richest country in the world, well over a third of American people are poor and near poor. Nearly 70% of Americans would struggle to meet an unexpected expense of $400. That's me. According to a report by the Federal Reserve, the poverty level is a $30,000 annual income for a family with 2 adults and 2 children. The U.S. Census Bureau reports that approximately 38 million people were poor in 2021. That means more than 1 in 9 Americans live below the poverty line. Poverty rates are higher for Black Americans and Native Americans, 19.5% and 27% respectively, compared to 8.1% for non-Hispanic whites. When you include the near poor, the figures rise to over 93 million, about 29% of all people that have an income below 200% of the poverty level. I wonder, is she going to say, I haven't looked at this yet, end poverty? Perhaps we should end poverty. Anti-poverty plan. Poverty is not natural. It is a policy choice, and we can end it. Who else is running on that? Everybody knows it's possible. We are the richest country in the history of the world. The test of our progress is not whether we add more to the abundance of those who have much. It is whether we provide enough for those who have too little. President Franklin Roosevelt. She would be the new Roosevelt. Also, not to mention, guys, she literally revived Franklin Roosevelt's Economic Bill of Rights. Bernie Sanders helped revive it. He talked about this, I think. Kyle Kalinske has talked about this. She's putting it on her website. She's running on it. Yeah. Let's just scroll down. Okay. 1. Right to a job that pays a living wage. Right to vote. Right to a voice in the workplace through union and collective bargaining. Right to universal quality healthcare. A right to a cost-free higher education. Right to good, affordable housing. Right to a clean environment and a healthy planet. Right to a meaningful endowment of resources at birth. This is an interesting one. One of the most powerful ways to fight poverty is through baby bonds, by which every child is allotted at birth an amount of money that will become a conduit to wealth creation in their adult years. That's amazing. The best baby bond proposals restrict the use of those funds to wealth-building activities such as buying a home or farm, going to a college or trade school, or starting a business. While such plans could cost taxpayers up to $60 billion a year, that's fucking nothing. It's nothing. That amount is less than 10% of what we spend on our annual defense budget, an item labeled, almost ironically at this point, as our national security. Yeah. The right to sound banking and financial services. Let's bring back the Postal Service as our banking. The Postal Service used to be kind of like a bank, and now it's all just big banks. Banks are often engaged in activities that destabilize the economy. Yeah. Right to an equitable and fair justice system. The right to cultural and civic involvement in democratic life. The United States invests very little in the arts compared to other countries. I will support substantial federal investment in the arts and create public works project that employs arts and beautifies our country. We will give grants to schools to guarantee that our young have access to highest involvement in culture and arts. We will also create the most stringent federal protections on voting rights and election integrity, not only to achieve the goals I have stated here, but also to guarantee that such rights will never again be under serious threat. That's insane. Imagine what we could do with all of this nation's wealth in terms of creating art and creating beauty and music. I think that's a beautiful vision. So, watch this video. It's 47 minutes long. And this is where she kind of lays out for herself in her own words. Watch this video. Watch this. Watch this one. This is an hour long. This is the Real News Network did an interview with her, and I was watching this, no kidding, while I was tripping on mushrooms, and I was literally mind blown. I was having this amazing healing experience. I was sitting in my bed, legally by the way, because I live in Colorado. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna turn on just something on YouTube so I could just sit and enjoy myself. And I watched this interview. Boom, blew my mind. Okay. And watch this video. This one right here. So she sat down in 2022 with the two guys from the Gravel Institute that got in touch with Mike Gravel, and basically started his campaign to get onto the debate stage, and just he unfortunately did fail to do that, and rest in peace to Mike Gravel. But this is a really powerful conversation. So watch this one too. Okay. So that is basically a summary of why I am supporting Marianne Williamson for the presidency this time around. And I just think she's the leader we need. I think people are underestimating her. I think she's incredibly fierce. And I think we need a woman of her moral caliber in the White House. That's what I think. I think Joe Biden has a lot to be worried about, especially if she keeps going at this rate. She's really not messing around. So he should be afraid of the debates, which is why they're not having them. I think we should demand debates. We should show the American public just how incredible Marianne is compared to our president, who doesn't really seem to know what's going on. Okay, this is the Progressive West signing off. Hope you enjoyed.